Twitter is free, but it is an amazing, fascinating, and valuable tool now more than ever, now since it is being turned into a free speech platform by Elon Musk. Let me show you an interesting exchange from a few days ago. It starts when our Canadian professor and public intellectual Jordan Peterson tweeted this. He said, referring to the College of Psychologists of Ontario, that's having a hearing on his political wrongthink, he said, a court in Canada is going to rule on the College of Physicians Ontario decision to sentence me to mandatory re-education on June 21st for my reprehensible political views. The process is called a judicial review. And then Elon Musk himself answered saying, re-education is such an interesting term. Where have I heard that before? Well, someone who knows and someone who lived through it is our guest today. Her name is She Van Fleet. I'll introduce her in a moment, but here's what she wrote. She said in reply, I not only heard about this term more than 50 years ago, I also lived through it. Mao coined this term. With his order, millions of urban youths and Red Guards were sent to the countryside to receive their re-education from poor peasants to be true communists. And look at this. This is terrifying. This is the only photo I have of me in the center. As a young high school graduate who was exiled to the countryside, my re-education lasted for 3 years until Mao died. In the pics, I was with friends at the dam reservoir we helped to build with our bare hands. Never in my wildest dream did I imagine that this term would one day make its way to America. Yes, re-education is indoctrination by coercion and force. And just one last tweet, because it's so, you've got to follow our guest on Twitter, She Van Fleet. But just one more tweet and then we'll get to her straight away. She shows an old Maoist propaganda poster and says, old propaganda poster, educated youth should go to the countryside to get their re-education from poor peasants. Well, what does that mean? And how is it related to what they're doing to Jordan Peterson and others with wrongthink? Joining us now is She Van Fleet. She is a survivor of Maoism and the author of the forthcoming book, Mao's America, A Survivor's Warning. You can pre-order it on Amazon now. It's a pleasure to have you back on the show. And thank you again for weighing in with such an interesting lesson from history. Tell me about what re-education meant 50 years ago. How did you get selected for it? Tell us your own story, first of all.
Yes, and in order to understand re-education, I have to introduce another term, and I think this term will make into American lexicon. It's called thought reform. The whole purpose of re-education is to get rid of the so-called bourgeois thoughts, the thoughts that is not pure communist. So we have to get rid of. How do you get rid of those thoughts? You do it by physical labor. So we're supposed to work with the peasants, live with the peasants, but most of all, we have to think as the peasants do. And what does that mean? That means give up any critical thinking skills. Get rid of it. That's not good. You need to follow the party line and be just like the peasants. Follow the party. And that is what the re-education is for. So today, the bourgeois is really the conservative ideologies, the American founding principles. Those are the bourgeois thoughts that need to be corrected through re-education camp.
Well, why were you chosen? How old were you? What did you do to make you singled out? Or I guess there were millions of you. Why were you?
It's millions. It's all the urban youths that graduate from high school, and we're all sent to the countryside. First of all, there's no jobs. So it's basically a way to get rid of these youths and put them into countryside and work with the peasants. I was 16 when I went to the countryside, and I worked in the fields in a very primitive condition. And one of the jobs we did is to build a dam. And I later added a picture. I don't have my own of how we did it. We dig the dirt, carry the dirt, and dump it into another place. It was back-breaking task. So what I learned nothing. I learned that life was so hard. And I learned that it is a good idea to get rid of any critical thinking skills. So you just don't think, you just do it. All you need to do is follow the water. And that's the purpose of re-education.
And can you compare that? I mean, you weighed in with this personal revelation, this personal story, and even a photograph. When Elon Musk and Jordan Peterson were talking about thought reform or re-education, how are modern day thought reforms comparable to what you lived through under Mao Zedong? What are the common elements? In Jordan Peterson's case, his professional association condemned him to re-education. How is that the same as what Mao did?
It's the same thing. It's like, one of the training is called sensitivity training. It's basically get rid of what you had in your mind that does not agree with the party. And the party, which is in China, it's the CCP. Here's the Democratic Party. And they had their own ideology, the woke ideology. If you have a thought that's contradict to it, you need to go to the camp and re-educate it and reform your thought so that you'll be on board with what they're pushing, which is accept their lies and follow their orders.
Do they do things like that now, or do they have different tools and tactics now?
Oh, they have. That's called a study session. And it's not to send you to the countryside yet, but Mao did that. But now it's study session. Every company or organization have to devote so much time a week to political study. Study what? Study Xi Jinping's thought. Now, not Mao thought anymore, it's Xi Jinping's thought. And the book that you have to read, it's no longer a red little book. It's Xi Jinping's book. Same thing.
That was an excerpt from the Ezra Levant show. I'm Ezra Levant. Every weekday, I do a monologue about the topic of the day. Then I interview a fascinating guest, either in studio or via Skype. And then I read your mail, whether it's fan mail or hate mail, which is sometimes even more interesting. This is on our premium service, though, called Rebel News Plus. Go to rebelnewsplus.com. It's $8 a month or less if you buy a whole year in advance. You get my show every weeknight, plus Sheila Gunn Reid's show every week. It's called The Gun Show. It's pretty amazing. You know, we rely on you because we do not take a dime from the government. In Canada, that makes us almost unique. So please help us out and help yourself to some great journalism at rebelnewsplus.com.